Hello, everyone. Welcome to our PAX panel, our PAX online panel for 2020. My name is TRUMAN, and I'm introducing you to the Non-Programmer's Guide to the Gaming Galaxy. A bit of an interesting title and a bit of pop culture sprinkled in there. I have to do it. But this panel was actually born out of my own kind of journey into the games industry and wondering from a very young age how to get in, because I was under the assumption that you needed to be able to make a game to be able to work in the video game industry. And then once I finally got in, I was constantly bombarded with that question. As a community manager, everybody expected that I was the sole person responsible for everything in the game, and as such, it was my responsibility to fix it. So I wanted to challenge that idea a little bit. And so in order to do that, I'm joined by some incredibly talented people from Wargaming Sydney. And I will introduce them for us now. So we can't really go around the room, but if my colleagues could kindly introduce themselves in alphabetical order, share what they do at Wargaming, any sort of games industry history they've had before, and how long they've been in the industry to what brings us here today. So let's start. I think Dean is first off the list in alphabetical order, am I right?
First up, yes. Hi everyone. My name's Dean Finnigan. I'm the lead artist at Wargaming Sydney, and I've been at Wargaming for a year and 5 months, so not that long at this studio. I've been working in game development since probably about 94. And you're all going to say you were never born. I hate you all. So the accent, I started off in the UK in the game dev scene there. And I've worked for some pretty amazing studios in the UK. Codemasters, early days. That was working on titles like Mike Tyson Boxing, which part of that development, I actually got to meet him and watch him fight, which was amazing. And then eventually made my way to Lionhead, worked at Fable, came over to Sydney, Australia, and worked at Team Bondi on LA Noire. I bounced around a bit between game and film development, and made my way to Wargaming Sydney.
My name's Holly. My career is much shorter. I was this year's design intern at Wargaming Sydney. I've been here for 5 months, and a month ago I became the designer on the Sydney Tank Commander team.
My name's Jemima. I'm a junior artist here at Wargaming, and I've been here for actually about 4 months now, so it's going well, which is good. So before I kind of got to Wargaming, most of my prior experience is just sort of working for some smaller game companies, doing some freelancing, mainly focusing on mobile development.
Hi everyone, my name is Veronica Tjakrawisada, and I'm a UI and UX designer. For those who aren't familiar, UI is user interface and UX is user experience. It's my first role in the game industry, and this is my 8th month at Wargaming Sydney.
My name's Vondle. I'm currently the community manager for water tanks in Australia and New Zealand. Before this, I was, and still am, a Twitch streamer, so I've been partnered with the platform for going on 3 years now, and I'll be coming up to my 4th year in streaming. Before that, I didn't really have any background in the games industry. I was a accountant by trade, so it just shows you that no matter your background, you can get in here if you try hard enough.
Fantastic. Thank you, Vondi. So I'm Jake, as I mentioned, product manager for World of Tanks in ANZ. I used to be a community manager in Dear Vondle's position. Before that, I was doing community management for kind of social media agencies and other non-gaming brands. And prior to that, was doing some freelance journalism for game reviews and working in video game retail. So very much just hustling, trying to get involved in the industry wherever I can. But yes, thank you very much to all of my panelists here today, and it's a good thing that it's just not a one-on-one with me and Dean. Otherwise, I'd be picking his brain about that amazing career for well into the early hours of the morning. But yes, as everyone seems to be able to agree. But yeah, we've got quite a mix of staff here today, from quite a mix of disciplines, from quite a mix of experiences, which is something that we wanted to kind of put together today. So hopefully through the magic of editing, something will come up over my face now. What we wanted to do was just create like a little visual display of what a games company looks like from the outside in and from the inside out. So, you know, the differences between publishing and developing and even HR, and what those kind of proficiencies can mean, not only for somebody who's working in that position as one of those proficiencies, but also you as a player, what that actual person contributes to the game that you're playing and the part of the experience that you're enjoying. But let's get into the questions themselves now. Who studied for their role, and who kind of found their own way into the industry? Like, for example, for those that studied, what was the most valuable thing that you kind of learned from your study? And for those that didn't study, now that you're in the industry, what was the most valuable thing that you could have benefited from in this sort of process?
For me, I'm a little bit of mix. I never learned at university or took short course of UI UX specifically for game. I self-taught myself on that by playing a lot of games and reading articles online. I did learn UI for website at uni. Because UI and UX apply for a lot of things in real worlds. Like nearly all softwares and hardwares have UI UX, like TV and remote control, washing machines, supermarket self-service checkout, and many more. So I went to University of New South Wales, majoring in multimedia. Then I learned about website, HTML, CSS. It's my first introductions to user interface, I guess. And I also learned a little bit of everything. I learned photography, flash, sound, 3D, visual communications, and many more.
Vondle, I wanted to ask you about this question, mate, because you've got a very different experience to everyone. So you, as you mentioned, were training as an accountant.
Yeah.
So, you know, not exactly the kinds of folks that you imagine being the most vibrant and engaging Twitch streamers, but I remember you talking to me in quite detail about how valuable that kind of real world, especially business knowledge, benefited you when you were starting to move up through the ranks of streaming. So I suppose in a flip side, what was valuable about learning accounting that benefited your experience as a streamer, less as a community manager, but on your journey? On your journey,
yeah. Well, I guess the thing is, like, you shouldn't really start out streaming with the idea of turning it into a business or that you're going to make something of it. I basically, had a job lined up ready to go at Deloitte. I was about to take it, and then I kind of sat back and I was like, do I want to basically be locked in here for the next 4 years, basically, or do I want to go see the world a bit? So I ended up backpacking for 5 months all through Europe, which is something that I know now a lot of people wish they could certainly do, but it pretty much changed my life to the point where I realized that just hearing growing up, like my family especially, because we didn't have a lot, was always like money, like do whatever it takes, get money, do whatever it takes. And then going over there made me realize that like that was not like something I didn't really always particularly care about. It was more about enjoying the experiences and the time I had over there. So on a week before I came home, I got an email saying that the MBN was available in my area, and it's something that I've wanted to try for a while. So I got it all set up while I was overseas. I came back home and started streaming, and I guess I had the mindset that I really wanted to make something of it. Which is something I don't recommend to people getting into streaming, but it's something that I don't know if it was like I want to say like vision or whatever of it, but like I kind of just knew. It was just like a gut feeling. So I went hard at it, and just like anything else really is the business experience I got, especially doing something like this, your stream turns into a small business. You do your own marketing in a sense, you do your accounting, you do your own finances, scheduling what you want to spend your time on, etc., etc. So having that commerce degree and everything I learned through there, and then especially with what I did during my internships and stuff at Deloitte, was that being able to manage your finances. And I will say that I worked my absolute butt off for like 60 hours a week for like 3 years before I did this. So I had money to set myself up, because people jump into streaming and just, I don't know, let's just quit my job and go for it and see what happens. Like, don't do that. Like, be able to support yourself for at least a year and then see what happens. So it was really handy. And then once, I understood the back end of a stream and the business side of it, you can kind of spend more of your time on the external facing stuff, which is being live in front of the camera with everyone. And I guess that helped me get to the point where I got enough experience. I've done it long enough. I got partnered, and then I saw the job up for content creator for Wargaming. I literally applied on stream while I was playing World of Warcraft.
While you're playing World of Warcraft,
yeah. Okay, someone sent it to me, and I was like, hey, I'll go for it. Again, like, long distance relationship with my beautiful partner Bree for a year and a half at that point. So it was a culmination of wanting to change what I was building my life to, which was a future having a house. Because again, unless you do really well in streaming, you're not going to be kicking any financial goals anytime soon. So I kind of changed what I wanted out of what I was doing, and this came up, and then I applied and managed to get it, and here I am, being able to line up a lot more job things than like life things than just career or personal life, etc.
I went through games education, but it was a long time getting there. I had a similar experience where you have money, and growing up we were quite poor, and my entertainment was encyclopedias, and at one point we got a Windows 98 and I got a single game, and it was called Carnivores, and I spent my entire life in it. And I remember the first time I started thinking about what I wanted to do for a job, I'm like, well, someone has to make the games. Like, I'll be that person. I will make the game. And then, you tell your parents, and they're like, no, get a real job, get money. So, that obviously led to me getting a degree in music out of spite, and changing my career about 10 times. Like, I've been a cook, a waiter, a restaurant manager, a landscaper, turf layer, retail, IT, God, all of them. But ultimately it led to me doing that deep meditation where you're like, what do you want to do? And that voice is like, video games. Video games, it's always been video games. And so I just Googled, I literally Googled video game school, and found a course and enrolled, and then there was the Wargaming internship listed, and my teacher encouraged me to apply. And my brother had played World of Tanks, World of Warships, and I was like, I know that name. And I actually failed the first time I applied. I came close but no cigar, and they said, you came very close and we would like to keep in contact with you. We don't want to lose you. So I spent about 6 months being mentored by designers in the studio, like bringing my uni work to them and asking questions. And that was exceptionally valuable, because the next time the internships came up, they just offered it to me. So yeah, the most valuable thing I learned in education was the idea that you don't have to pick a job and then that is your job forever. Raised by an accountant who was an accountant forever, and a vet who was a vet forever, and that's just not real. It's not how people get jobs anymore. And this could be my job now. I could change it again. I doubt it, but yeah, but it's fine. You're allowed to take a while to get places or go to different places. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. Thanks very much, Holly. Dean, I want to ask you about this as well. And Jem, if we have time, I'll get to you as well. But the reason I want to ask Dean especially is because, as I mentioned before, you would have been starting out in the industry and kind of skilling yourself up at a time when gaming was still kind of like that unicorn industry. Like, did it exist? Didn't it exist? Like, who were these people? So what was that journey like for you, especially, you know, when you would have been working towards it and it would have seemed even less of a viable option? Was this something that you always knew that you were going to do in your bones, or did you kind of fall into it?
So I fell into it, and I just want to say, 20 years later, my parents still have no idea what I do.
This panel is for all the parents out there. You've explained your job title like 20 times, and it's just like, wait, sorry.
So what do you do?
What does that mean?
Yeah. So I think there's a very sort of similar feel that we've all said, is that I went to art college in the UK very early days, really before I kind of knew, you know, I played games, played arcade games, all that kind of thing. Was quite infatuated with the art education I was getting. It was lots of drawing, photography, like quite a well balanced all round sort of creative education, and I think I really fell in love with every aspect of that. And through sheer stubbornness, I think I really tried to eke out a career in that, much to the displeasure of my parents, you know, get a proper job and all that kind of thing. So I think early days, I had very little knowledge of what the game industry was about. Really early days of point and click, you know, PC adventures. That and I think I ended up trying to get a portfolio together, you know, from an art point of view, which is still relevant today. I think, you know, from an art position, your portfolio sort of says everything. And I really tried to get, you know, drawings together, digital drawings, got turned down by so many studios, it wasn't funny, and just sort of through sheer stubbornness and perseverance, eventually a studio in London sort of gave me an opportunity. And I think that's the thing, it's sort of perseverance, keep going. You've got to have passion, like we've all been saying. You know, if you get turned down at the first hurdle and you think, oh, that's it, I gave it a go, you know, you've really got to sort of push your way through it. And for me, I was just so in love. You know, how fantastic is it that what we're doing is we're working in an industry that we're all pretty passionate about, which is, you know, you have to pinch yourself every day that's what you're doing. It was just that one studio giving me an opportunity. They saw something in the drawings that I was doing, and that was the way in. And then from there, just working with other like-minded people is just such an awesome experience, and you just learn something every day. And before you know it, that first experience of your first studio really elevates your knowledge. You're making connections, you're networking, and you get to meet, you know, I'm still in, you know, really strong friends with people that I worked with 20 years ago in the UK. We're still in touch, and it's such a small industry, and it's such a tight, supportive industry as well. So it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Dean. Jem, does like with a much more limited time frame, of course, does that speak to your experience coming into the industry? And can we also just get a quick shout out to our guest panelist here, who I don't think is on the bill, so needs to be credited properly. So yes, absolutely, shout out. Yeah. But how was both of your experience coming into the industry, especially as a cat? Like, as a cat, what is it like, you know, being met with the challenges of finding a way into the games industry? Feel free to speak for the cat in your own experience.
Okay. Well, I can't really speak for the cat, but I guess my kind of personal experience. So I pretty much straight after high school, I jumped straight into study. So I didn't know kind of exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something creative, and I had a really supportive family as well, so they knew that I, you know, enjoyed playing games growing up. So it was actually my dad that kind of pushed me in the direction of, you know, looking at game art. So I studied a course in game art and animation, and you know, that taught me a lot about the industry and about games as a whole. And from there, I kind of just sort of was able to put together a portfolio. So that was something that Dean kind of touched on there, is the importance of portfolio. And that was, the main thing that really helped me kind of find my place in the industry. And then now I'm here.
Fantastic. I find that really interesting. We've had 5 sets of parents who are like, for the love of God, don't think of video games. And then one set of parents was, have you thought about video games?
Yeah, it's really interesting.
One more open discussion question. What's the biggest misconception about your role? So I guess when you explain your job and then your inevitable response is, I don't know what that means. What is that? I guess for me, the misconception on the publishing side is that we're developers inevitably. And so every time somebody will come in with their cutting feedback, their hot take about the game, they assume that I built it and it's my responsibility to fix it, which I've now, with reluctance and relief, mixed feelings, have passed that on to dear Vondle to now experience that firsthand. So I'm guessing I'm answering the question for you there as well, Vondle, the same kind of experience. But for our developers, especially guys who are not the conventional developer in a sense, like you're not just sitting there for 12 hours a day looking at a screen of code. What is the misconception about your jobs that you have to challenge a little bit, or you have to kind of explain in a bit more detail to a layman?
I guess the most common misconceptions would be that UI and UX are the same thing. They're not. And that's the first one. The second is knowing how to use wireframing tools are enough to master UI and UX. Not enough. Because, what is UI and what is UX? UI is it's a system of visual components that allows player to interact with the games. And UX, or user experience, refers to how intuitive and enjoyable those interactions are. So to simply put, UI refers to how things look, and UX refers to how things work. UX are much more complex. It involves understanding the user needs, knowing their pains, their goals, the user personas, creating wireframe, also user journeys, facilitating user tasks, and a lot more things. Like, it's much more complex than that. And not only that, one critical component of UX is to accomplish the business goals and also their objective. So it's about the users, but at the same time we have to meet the goals and the business goals as well.
Could you explain a bit more between, I guess, UX and UI? You mentioned that one was more of a kind of like a visual language, whereas one is more of like a systems and structure. So do you cover both of those proficiencies? Are there people who do just one or the other? Like how do you manage those two areas?
I cover both, because UI and UX, that goes hand in hand. You cannot just fluent in UI but not UX. Because, for example, if you wanna if you wanna make a for example, what's it called? If you wanna make a text, the color of that text, like the layout, where you put the text, the color of the text, there's always a reason behind it. You cannot just create a text. There's always a reason, and to get to that reason, there's a step-by-step that you have to make, like research, surveys, and all that. And that's part of the UX.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Thank you very much for elaborating that. That was one of the ones coming into this panel that I was very interested to hear more about. And I'm going to kind of segue into art now, but I'm going to use Holly as kind of like a middle person between art and UX as the design hybrid.
A common misconception that I get within the industry is that designers just write documents. I attended a student industry meetup event just after I'd started as the intern at Wargaming, and people were wearing stickers. Like students wore the sticker of the field that they were studying, and industry people wore stickers of what fields they were looking for. And lo and behold, no, no design stickers anywhere. So I was going around and talking to people, and there was a gentleman who was the founder of his studio and said to me, well, what will you do when there's no more documents to write? And I told him a bunch of things, but I was also like, what's the negative connotation attached to documents? You make games without plans. How does that go for you? Yeah, there's a lot. Like any part of a game that requires any sort of research or design finesse, I do. It's not just documents.
Yeah, so I guess for me, like when I talk to people who don't really know much about games specifically, they always sort of, I guess, default to coding and programming, and then, you mentioned game art, and they sort of don't really kind of understand what that is. So I guess specifically with game art, there's an idea that I guess a game artist is, they're just sort of making the game look pretty and adding colors and that sort of stuff, which is a really, really big part of game art. But there's the, a whole other side to it that's much more technical and, like getting things working right and that sort of stuff. So I guess that's probably the biggest kind of misconception I've sort of come across. But I find once you sort of explain that, you kind of get some understanding nods, I guess, from people who don't really know much.
Dean, was there anything that you wanted to add to that, or has Jemima kind of nailed it for an art perspective at least?
Yeah, I think everybody's touched on it. Really, is that we certainly don't work in isolation. All of us, it's not like the art department is away colouring in and making things look pretty. We work, especially in Wargaming Sydney, we work as multidisciplined teams. We have artists, designers, engineers, all working together on features as they're emerging. And often with games, there's a balance between making it look good, making the gameplay responsive, and frame rate as well. And they all seem to be nicely represented by design, art, and engineering as well. And then without forgetting audio, on top of that. So we certainly don't work in isolation. We're constantly talking to designers. What happens if you use this weapon but then do this at the same time, and you're constantly bombarding. I think the whole part of what we do is we're problem solving just about every minute of every day. We're making decisions, we're all feeding in, coming up with ideas, proposals, and then trying things out and then working out what. At the end of the day, it's the game that is key. The gameplay is key. Shouldn't really say that as an artist, but it's absolutely true. There's no point in having amazing graphics and the gameplay is terrible. We've all played those games and they're awful. So our job as an artist is to really facilitate the responsiveness that the player wants to experience, and the gameplay that is the whole experience as well. So yeah.
Okay, cool. That's super interesting. Thank you very much. For the artists among us, we've got Jemima and Dean. I would love to hear the differences between like a more leads experience in terms of their roles and responsibilities and more of a junior in terms of, what that entails on your day-to-day, and I suppose how you interact with each other and what kind of work that involves. Vondle, we can speak to that as well. If a publishing mix kind of it is relevant, but ours is probably much less interesting. So we'll let the artists speak first. Dean, if you'd like to, as someone who's both been a junior and now a lead, how does that look for you?
That's a good question. One of my main tasks is to make Jemima happy. That's kind of where it's all at. But I think it's from, especially at Wargaming Sydney, a big aspect of what I've been doing over this last year and a half is building and recruiting a fantastic team. So what I get to do in that space is look at the work that we've got to do, in development. You know, we do prototyping, we do development of a big title as well as other tech projects, and then work out what the requirement is for artists within those teams and feature teams, those multidiscipline teams. Look at what skills people have, recruit those skills in, and just build a fantastic team within that. So now we're sort of 8-9 artists that are in Sydney, and you know that's you know, you've got to look at different levels of people in your team. It would be absolutely fantastic if I could recruit, you know, senior expert levels all along the way. But you know, making a game is a business, and it costs money. So you have to balance your team between you know, looking for people that like we were talking about earlier, that wanted your first gig, that first step of being getting into a studio. You know, we have to support the industry that way, and we work. Certainly, I work quite closely with a lot of the unis and colleges around Sydney and Australia, just to sort of build that contact with them. You know, we take internships on, which are a paid internship, which is Wargaming is fantastic for doing that, as Holly experienced. And it's all about, you know, Wargaming is excellent as a company because we do want to give back to the industry as well. Australia, you know, we do get a lot of brain drain to other countries, and so wherever we can support the Sydney industry and Australian industry, then we'll do that. And so that's a big aspect of what I do, is build the team. And I have to say, you know, we've got a pretty fantastic, very complementary team, you know, diverse thinking, skill sets, and that's what you want as part of that team. You know, you want different people to when you're working on features or projects and you're doing the work, you want different ideas coming together. And so in other studios, as well as part of that lead role, I've actually recruited animators that have never touched a computer before, because I saw, you know, there was something in the way they thought and their creativity, and I just thought, you know, we can sort of teach them the tools specific to production in a short space of time. But somebody that thinks amazingly creatively and has from an animation point of view, had a fantastic sense of timing, you can't teach that so quickly. So you kind of, you look at different people coming on board, you know, the show reels that come at you, and look at how best to complement the team as well. So that's a big part of what I do. I also obviously on a day-to-day basis talk to the team. So I feel that you know, Jemima will talk about what her day-to-day role is, but often with the team, we are for each other anyway, and it's not just my responsibility, but we're often a sounding board for each other, just to question, you know, is that the best way to do it? Could we push it a little bit further? You know, I'm always trying to push the team to deliver as high quality as possible. You know, that's super efficient within the game, you know, to get that frame rate up. So we're always trying to explore the best way and really push that. And I think often being a sounding board for the team is what I do. And you know, members of the team that might be working on a specific feature on a certain aspect of the game. I'm trying to talk without saying exactly what we do, which is, you know, so excuse them being really ambiguous. So I might have one artist working on one feature, and if another artist is starting work on another feature, and I can see that those skill sets need to talk to each other, then I just make sure that we're sort of leveraging each of our skills and knowledge, and just make sure that everybody talks to each other and make the connection. So, you know, if Jemima's doing something and I go, oh, hang on, you know, another artist did that like 6 weeks ago. So just talk to them and see how they approached it. That's what I do as well. And really another aspect of what I do is talk to the stakeholders quite a lot. So, you know, we do develop with the UK studio. So we're constantly talking to them just to make sure what we're delivering fits in with the vision and technicality. So it's I guess it's just having that overview of features from a little bit of a different point of view, and just making sure connecting people and making sure that we're sharing the skills. And I don't say it jokingly. It is making sure Jemima's happy. So it if Jemima's got to be all members of the team have got to be challenged, feel that they are achieving things creatively and that they're developing the skills. And so it's we work very closely as a team to look at ways of how we can keep that knowledge going. And the team, we've had lots of different things going on, like working remotely, is a whole different challenge in itself. But we often we found a bit of software that was meant for something entirely different. But we have lunchtime sketch sessions on a Friday where we all just join, talk about nonsense, keep together sort of socially, but and we'll kind of choose a theme each week and just practice our drawing skills and do that. And then we've organized what we call lunchtime learning, which is a Wednesday, and each of us presents skills that we specialize in to just showcase that to the rest of the team and keep that going. So I guess it's you're overseeing the team, but making sure that they're really enjoying what they're doing and challenging what they're doing, so that they can produce the best work that they can. Yeah.
Wow, that's a super insightful answer and very interesting, because you explained so much about what you do and none of it was I do art, which I thought was very interesting coming from a lead artist. But I suppose, speaking to that point, having gone from a community manager's into a product manager's position, I can very much appreciate the parallels between kind of pulling yourself out of the kind of trench work, I suppose, to oversee the moving pieces altogether. Yeah. But before I get Jemima to go into that in a bit more detail, when was the last time you actually did artwork that has contributed to a game? And well done for navigating the minefield of NDA and we're not allowed to talk about this. And we could have put the bar over your eyes and just have redacted everywhere. Yeah. When was the last time? Does your face close blurry all of a sudden? Disconnected. When was the last time you actually did some art that contributed to a project as a lead artist?
This morning or last week. So
hell yeah. Okay. So there is a lot of art still involved in your role. Okay.
Yeah. I just think good that you kind of picked up on that, because I think for me to feel like I make sense to the team and I need to be doing it, and techniques are changing all the time. Hardware and software is changing all the time. We're just on the cusp of PS5 coming, and what will that mean to development? It'll open up whole new techniques. And so from my point of view, just like Jemima will talk about from her point of view, is being on top of latest techniques and what the latest games are in terms of quality of artwork. You have to be absolutely on top of. And I do, it's part of how I approach that position, is that I do like to still do and be in the trenches and just make sure I'm on top of those things as well. So yeah, I do that really regularly. It's why I got into the industry. And sometimes there's a sense that the better you are at what you do, the more you get taken away from it. Whereas I sort of clutch at every aspect of the artwork and keep that as part of my daily practice as well. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much for that, Dean. Jem, so to speak to the art itself, and Dean actually mentioned a very interesting point there that I'd like to find out more about from you. So now we are moving into this new generation, these new consoles. How is that going to inform your day-to-day work and your skill building between now and a year from now, when you could be, using vastly different techniques and technologies?
Yeah, that's a good question and an interesting thing to think about as well. And I guess it's probably not as black and white as it sounds as well. I feel like it's sort of like constantly kind of changing as you go, and it's almost like you don't notice, I guess, that exact change, with a new kind of generation of tech and things like that. But it's always something that you're thinking about, while you're working, and as new tech comes in and it slowly evolves, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah,
kind of answer that. Yeah,
absolutely. And so back to your day to day, like what does your art look like? Are you more of an environmental artist, a character artist, or am I again using two general terms and these things don't really exist and you do everything? Like what is a day and a week look like for you as Dean's trying to make sure that you're happy and working to maximum capacity?
Yes, that's also a good question. So I guess that the role itself isn't kind of one thing. So I find we kind of do like a whole range of different things that are involving with art. So sometimes it'll be, I guess, more on the technical side, or sometimes it'll just be, pure kind of making an asset or something like that. So it kind of really depends on the work that comes through. So I guess as a junior artist, I don't have to worry about as much the stuff that Dean has to worry about in terms of kind of organizational stuff. So I guess that's probably one of the biggest differences there. And I guess within the team, I have some more like senior artists that I work with, and I guess our kind of day-to-day work is, often we'll check in with each other, see what we're working on and what needs to be done as the tasks kind of come through, and then kind of, I guess, divvy out the work from there, depending on, what people are more interested in working on. So I guess that kind of ties in with what Dean was saying about making sure everyone's happy and enjoying the work. Like, we really make sure that a task, if someone really wants to, explore that further or work on that task, they're open to kind of work on that or pursue that a little bit more. But it overall is super collaborative as well. So if any artist has, something they're not sure about, or something that they know another artist has a bit more knowledge on, it's very open in a sense that, you can approach them about it, or sometimes we'll have meetings where we just sit and kind of like talk through an issue or what we're working on and kind of all put in our ideas.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much. Vondle, in your community management, you obviously got this job due to your proficiency as a community manager of your own community. So obviously that would have some liberties and some freedoms that are no longer afforded to you by representing a company. So how have you found that shift in community management from being fairly autonomous to representing a voice that is not your own?
The first thing is I can't just ban anyone for whatever reason I want. That's the main one. It's quite different, because the thing is like, when I think the best way to draw the parallel is artistry. Like, if you're a singer, an actor, or something like that, right? Is you're building a fan base / community around you for people who genuinely enjoy what you do and want to be there and see you succeed and support it, right? Whereas I guess the flip side of that for gaming is that you've got people who are like really passionate about the game and might tell you all the things they hate with it because they're so passionate about it, right? As they want to see the game do the best it can be, where like you're not linked to the game. Like, I'm not a tank. I don't drive around in real life, and then it's modeled on me, right? So it's quite the different dynamic in terms of, I guess, fostering. You're still fostering community, and you want to see it build, and you don't want like toxic people in. Like, if people came in and were toxic in stream, I'd ban them. Like, I didn't get involved, I guess, in like drama. Like, you're the product, right? So if anything, it's like an image thing. It's like a brand thing. So it's kind of, you've got the same end goal where you want to like, showcase the best parts of what you are or what your game is, or communicate the intentions of what you're trying to do. But I guess the difference is the terms of feedback you get or the criticisms you get people you can't just necessarily write off because of how they're, I guess, coming to you with it. So it's been a fun shift in dynamic from taking on what everyone says, but I guess the other thing is being able to pick what's constructive, what has actual valid feedback with it, versus what's just being frustrated or jumping on the bandwagon for the sake of it, in terms of people just being annoyed for the sake of things. And I guess you could probably look at Twitter as a good parallel between it. Is there's a lot of stuff on there, whether a lot of it's useful or not is a completely different thing. So it's more about communicating a message, making sure you're doing the best you can in showing off what all these hardworking individuals are doing, and then bringing back useful, actionable, constructive feedback to them so they can then model and shape it. Because like anything you work on, if I made something for my stream that I made on, I worked my ass off on it, was like, yes, this is the best, and then I show everyone's like, it could be better. I don't know, like, I know how that goes. You've only got so much you can get value out of the group you're involved in, or like whoever you're working with, where you really do need that external factor to, I guess, make sure you've taken it to the next level, or it's where you thought it would be, I guess, would be the best way of saying it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, not just like when you're managing your own community, you can deal with things on a case-by-case basis, but when you're managing a company's community, even the person if you're responding to an individual, you're not only having to solve their problem, but also the problem of anybody who might read that or might experience the similar. So you're never just speaking to one person. I would love to speak specifically to Holly, Jemima, and Veronica. As we can see here, we have three fantastic women, all representing development roles in a gaming company. I think someone who is coming from publishing, this is not only great to have women representing this panel, but also women in dev, because you typically, the stereotypical thing would be marketing or PR or finance. So it's so great to see, so many females in strong roles in Wargaming Sydney. So at risk of continuing to wax poetic on that and just mincing my own words, I'm just going to get to the question. As women in gaming, especially women in development roles, what are some of the misconceptions that you have faced in your experience to date, and what have you able to do to challenge those misconceptions? So obviously women in gaming is a massive one, and then women in dev is the next. So how has that experience look like for you guys?
Well, working in the game industry is exciting, challenging, and extremely rewarding. I guess the biggest misconception for me, hearing from other people, that it's a man's world. It's not. Women are certainly welcome, and we need more women more than ever. I guess we all have the responsibility to play part in this change by leading and supporting other women who hopefully shares our passions. So Holly and I had the opportunity to talk to 160 young girls recently about the game industry at a high school in Sydney, North Shore. We went with 4 other Wargaming employees. We explained about our roles and our responsibilities, and to show them that our roles actually exist. So hopefully by seeing us there, we inspire them to work in the game industry.
Fantastic. Holly, were you going to add to that?
Yeah, I'd say that the gendered perceptions existing within the industry don't start at an industry level. They start at school. Like little boys and little girls, like games are for boys and girls don't like them. And that's a very wildly common perception. Just people just think that 50% of people don't engage with one of the most popular media formats on the planet. It came right like at my face in games education. In our first week, we did a unit on the history of video games, and we had a task, which was to individually come up with 10 moments that we believed to be significant, like the most significant in the history of games. And one of mine was Metroid having the first female protagonist. And then what we did was go around the classroom and everyone said their 10, and for each moment, people raised their hands if they thought that was good enough to be in the top 30 moments. So mine comes up and it's me and maybe 2 boys and one of the other 2 women in the class. And the male teacher just said, okay, that's not making it. Completely ignoring that the demographic of the class, or the fact that the voting system was essentially how to determine what little white boys think are important. And it was a bit of a whiplash for me. You don't think that the first time a woman was portrayed in games not as a side character, an NPC to be ignored or kicked the shit out of, or literally an objective for the male protagonist, but instead a playable character, one of strength, like her own protagonist. You don't think that's even in the top 30? Well, I'm sorry, but we disagree.
No, absolutely. That's wild. But you're totally right though. Like that conversation is being had in a room predominantly with small white guys. So what nuanced objective takes are going to be brought from that. So it's so great to have people like yourself and Veronica going to those schools and kind of engaging at the ground level there. Jem, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that, or from your own experience?
I guess, Veronica and Holly have kind of really, hit the nail on the head there about, where it doesn't just start at an industry level, it goes all the way back to, I guess, school, that kind of stuff. So, like growing up as a girl, playing video games, that kind of stuff that kind of, puts you into a very specific, I guess, box at an early age as well. So I think I'm pretty lucky where it hasn't affected me or my career a lot. But again, I can't speak for every kind of girl within the industry. But I think it's just, super important to have those diverse, groups of people, and kind of raising awareness and that kind of stuff, I think is where that change is starting to happen. So it's really great to see, we're starting to get more games that are much more diverse. And I think, or I hope at least, that, encourages girls who see those characters and are interested in games to maybe, if that's something they're passionate about, to, explore that as a career by, seeing not only those characters, but also the diverse groups of people behind the games as well, I think is super important.
Absolutely. And, having 3 strong women such as yourself representing this panel and representing this company is so great for that as well. So thank you very much for taking the time today. I think that's it from all of us. We've got one more kind of like final comments before we go. Just quickly, Dean, I know you've got to run off. Are you still all right to just quickly sort this final question? Beautiful. Thank you, sir. So very, very general summary. One final comment. If you could leave our viewers with one final comment, piece of advice, any sort of word or pearl of wisdom that you'd like to impart, what would you say? Dean, let's start with you. I guess let's go around the room again, alphabetically, as Discord has already sorted that out for us. I don't need to worry. Dean, what would you say?
Oh my God, one comment. That's
one comment, just one.
One. You rotter. I think it's never stop learning and supporting. Early on in the games, when I was trying to get into the games industry, I reached out to somebody that was working for EA, I think, many moons ago. And he was very generous in offering support and portfolio feedback and techniques to learn and point me in that right direction. And that's kind of never left, in the sense that, give back wherever you can. It kind of enriches your experience. We're all kind of in this together, and I think it really helps your development if you bring everybody else along with you in that journey, because it's, you know, it is a fantastic journey, really. So yeah, I would say that.
Holly?
I guess as someone who perceived their biggest barrier between themselves and the games industry as technical ability, if you love games, you can work in games. You don't see it as a barrier. Technology is constantly evolving. If you have the passion for it, you can do it.
Absolutely. I'd like to echo Holly's point a little bit there. That's pretty much the same as mine. Like, even if you don't think you have the skill that, can make a game, you will have a skill, or you can develop a skill that can contribute to a game. Like, I built up social media as a skill because Facebook was exploding, Instagram was exploding. I figured that, everybody's going to need a social media person, even a games company. And that's how I got to where I got, games companies are companies too. Games are people too. Like outside of the people who make the games, you're still going to have people who need to run the company, who need to, administrate the office, pay people. Like, there are every single job that basically exists as a regular kind of office job exists in a game company as well, in addition to all the people who actually make the games themselves. So as Holly said, do not think that if you do not have what would be a quote unquote game development skill, that you cannot access games in a way that can be accessed now through community, through esports, through marketing. There's a million ways in. It's hard, but as everyone here has done, you just keep banging your head against the wall, and eventually you'll break through. And don't ignore your parents' advice unless it's Jemima's. And Jemima's is just like, yes, do join a games industry. If they say, oh, is that still an industry? Tell them to speak to Jemima's parents. Jem, you're up. What would you add to all that?
Yes, so mine's pretty similar to Dean's, where I think the most important thing is to always keep learning. I think because it's an industry that's growing all the time, and whether or not you're someone who's already in the industry or wanting to get into the industry, it's just keeping up with current trends and just being curious about all the new stuff that's coming out, and then on top of that, just being excited and passionate about what's going on in the industry.
Awesome. Thanks. V?
Cool. Mine is similar with Holly's, actually. I guess just be confident, and it's common for us to question ourselves and compare our technical abilities to people around us. But remember one thing, feelings is not facts. Focus on the facts, which are your accomplishment, your skills, the support for your family and friends, and I promise you 100% you will be more confident and comfortable.
Absolutely. And that's speaking directly to the strong sense of imposter syndrome I had this entire panel. But finish us off with a pearl of wisdom.
For one thing, if you're in community management, don't take it personally. People just are really passionate about the game. In terms of games industry, the biggest thing for me, this is just in general, education at a formal education institution, whether it be TAFE, university, high school, whatever, it's not the end of the world. If you bomb out on your HSC, don't worry about it. Like, being self-taught or being passionate in yourself and finding your own opportunities and making those opportunities is so much more valuable than if you go to a studio with a kick-ass portfolio but don't have any formal degree or whatever. They'll be like, damn, that's a good portfolio. Let's talk about that. Especially on what Veronica said, is you're running your own race. Don't compare yourself to other people. Don't be like, that person's already got this job and they're 30 and I'm 35. It doesn't matter. You're in your own, your own race. You're in your own marathon. Just do it yourself. And make your own opportunities. I always love games. I'd played games forever. The first game I ever played was Wolfenstein on my grandfather's MS-DOS machine. Just work out your own way. I started streaming, ended up here. You just find your own opportunities, chase what you want, stay passionate, and that goes for any industry. The world will be your oyster.
Well, I don't think I could end it any more eloquently or beautifully than that. Thank you so much for joining us in the non-programmer's guide to the gaming galaxy as the hyper improbability drive winds down and you thought that there wasn't going to be any other Hitchhiker's Guide references in this panel. Don't panic. I had my towel next to me the whole time. Thank you very much, Dean, Holly, Jemima, Veronica, Vondle. I was Jake. Thank you for joining us today. Cheers.